Hello, everyone. In this session, I'm going to talk about the personal tax, and that is Financial Act 2021. So that will be your new Financial Act exam, and that will going to be start from September 2022. So the last exam you'll be able to do December 23 for this paper. Now, the difference between the Financial Act 2021 and 2020 is a few more updated the threshold for the income tax, for example, the personal allowance, so the basic pen rate. So there are a few changes that we have to see for this Financial Act 2021. So if you're planning to do an exam from September 2022, so that will be your new Financial Act, and all the paper you are doing obviously has to be with the new syllabus, because from September 2022, the AT have a new syllabus, that is Q2022. So the AQ16 is not valid anymore after September if you are the new student, but if you're old student, you can still carry on the AQ16 up to a certain period. Okay, so let's talk about our Financial Act 2021 for the personal tax. Now, this is one of the level 4 paper, and of course, like this is all about the personal tax. Personal tax cover one individual tax. So when you have a taxable person, and this taxable person have to pay different sort of tax. For example, the income tax, for example, the employment tax, for example, the capital gain tax, inheritance tax, all of this thing which will be covered from the personal tax. So any tax in UK that is relevant to an individual person, that will be included in your personal tax paper. So after doing this paper, personal tax, you will be able to answer any question that is relevant to an individual tax. So let's have a look on the content, and let's have a look how many chapters we have, and what is the area we have to cover from this course. So the first thing, we will look at the content. And on the content, we can see we have 10 chapters to complete. The first one, we can see taxable income. So this is the very basic how a taxable income will be calculated. So it's nothing very difficult in chapter number 1. And then the calculation of income tax. This is one of the important chapter, because in the exam, expecting like almost 14 marks from this chapter. So 14 marks we're expecting from this chapter. Then we have an employment income. This is one of the important areas as well. Then property income, national insurance, chargeable gain, share disposal, PRR, that is private resident relief, and inheritance tax, and the tax and ethical framework. The last chapter is all about the ethics. Normally one question in the exam we expect from the ethics, but it's not much, maybe 4 or 5 marks you're expecting in the exam from ethics. Now let's talk about a little bit in detail. So here, the employment income and the income tax calculation, taxable income, is the basic stuff. So if you're working currently, you will know this thing. So when you work, so you get some salary from your employer, and they deduct sort of like the tax, national insurance, and they give you the net payment, that is your net paid that you receive to your bank account. But obviously, like there are a few more rules that could be added here. So you're going to see from there. And the income tax, under the income tax, we're going to see like how to calculate income tax. Now, an individual person have two types of income. For example, one person have a savings income and one person have a non-savings income. So you need to know the difference between these two. Now, the savings income means only the money you receive from the interest. Let's say you deposit some money, or from ISA, or from the bond, from anywhere. Like if you give some money to someone, or if you receive the interest. So if you receive interest, only that case, the money you receive from the interest, it is basically your savings income. Except the interest, all the other income we have, for example, employment, property income, for example, the dividend income, everything is our non-savings income. So the tax is a little bit different under the savings and non-savings. So you're going to see that sort of calculation on the chapter number 2. Employment income is all about how you recognize the employment income and how you adjust the personal allowance. So you're going to learn everything from chapter number 3. Chapter number 4 is the property income. So this is kind of the rented property. So if you have a property, it could be a residential property or it could be a holiday property. And if you rent it out, and what sort of tax you need to pay. Sometimes you might have a main residence and you rent it out one room. So if you rent it out one room or two room, how are we going to calculate the tax on that? And what sort of relief you're going to get, you're going to look at on this chapter. Then we have a national insurance. This one, like the calculation of your national insurance. We have two types of national insurance. We have employee national insurance and we have employer national insurance. Employee national insurance, when you pay national insurance from your salary to the HMRC. And on the other hand, we have employer national insurance. Employer national insurance, like when your company pay national insurance because of you work for that company. Then we have a chargeable gain. Now, chargeable gain is quite a tricky chapter. So here, we're expecting at least 12 to 14 marks from the chargeable gain. We need to be careful for this chapter, and it's quite important chapter for everyone. So chargeable gain is all about when you sell the fixed asset. For example, you have a computer, you have a painting, you have a table, you have a antique car. So if you sell something that is fixed asset for you, so it is not your business, but you sell some asset, you make some profit. Let's say in 1950, you buy a painting for £5,000. And today you sell this painting for £50,000. So you make a gain of £45,000. So you need to pay some tax on that amount. It is called capital gain tax. So when you make a capital disposal, and if you make some gain on that, then you have to pay some tax. This is called capital gains tax. There is some exemption there, something called chattels. We have to know this thing from this chapter. Then you have a share disposal. This is happen when you dealing with shares. So when you buy share and sell share, and if you make a gain, for example, if you invest some money on Tesco, and you sell some buy some share from there, and after a few months or few years, if you sell that share and if you make some gain, so you have to pay some tax on that. So every time if you make a gain or profit, you have to pay some tax to HMRC. Then we have a PRR, that is private residence relief. So this is happen like when you leave your house, or this is your main residence, and if you sell this house, and if you or rent this house, so what happened, the profit you are making or gain you are making, you have to pay some tax. And there is some relief, for example, how many years you live on that place, and how many years it was vacant, how many years it was rented. So based on that, there's some calculation before you actually pay the tax. So you're going to see this from this chapter. Then we have inheritance tax. Inheritance tax is all about if you inherit any property from your father, from grandfather, from mother, for anyone. So let's say if your parents passed away and their property moved to you because as inheritance, so there is some tax involved. Now, there are a few things we need to know. If the person alive and give you the property, how the tax implication work. If the person is died without giving the property to you, then how the tax implication will work. So this is different sort of calculation. When the person alive, he can give you the asset by make a will, or if the person is died and if the properties come to you as inheritance, then the calculation will be different. So you're going to see both of these, like how does it work. Something is called CLT, chargeable lifetime transfer. Something is called PET, that is potential exempt transfer. So you're going to look at both area. In the exam, you're expecting roughly 15 marks from there. So it is also very important chapter for us. All right, now let's have a look at the exam criteria. So the exam will be 2 hours like before, and in the exam, we're expecting 10 questions. So let's have a look. It says the exam will be computer-based. So it's a computer-based exam. So this is no problem for us. So the way we did before, it will be exactly the same. There is no changes for the new syllabus. Then we have marking type, partially computed. So basically the mark decided by the computer, or the mark given by the computer, it is basically the mark that is like contain the numbers. For example, if you made a calculation and if there's a numbers there, it will be marked by the computer. But if the question asking if you need to write something or explanation, then the examiner, it will be marked by human. So the examiner will read that and give you the mark. So any sort of numbering question, it will be marked by the computer. But if it is a writing question or explanation, then it will be marked by the human. The exam duration will be 2 hours, no problem for that. Then you have a learning outcome. You can see like which area you have to cover, and we have to score 70% to pass this exam. Now let's look at a little bit detail the area where you're expecting the question. So you can see here the task. So the first task you can expect from professional conduct or ethics, 10 marks. This is covered the tax and ethical framework, chapter number 1. Employment income, we're expecting 14 marks. Now employment income also have some benefit. Now benefit means like when your company give you something. For example, if you work for a company and if the company give you sort of benefit like a loan, like a car, like a fuel or any sort of reimbursement, if the company give you any benefit like medical insurance, whatever, it will be taxable for you. So it is very important. So you need to understand that it is also taxable income. So you need to see like how we calculate all of this and what type of tax we have to pay based on the benefit we're getting from the employer. Then we have investment and property. So this is basically our income, that is savings and non-savings income. So we have a taxable income and property income chapters and expecting 10 marks from there. Income tax payable, you have to calculate the whole income tax, how much you need to pay. So it's from the savings, from the non-savings, from the dividends, and we have to use sort of personal allowance. And after that, we need to see how much tax we need to pay to HMRC. This is called income tax payable. And it will cover like almost 2 chapters, taxable income and calculation of income tax. And we have 14 marks from this area. National insurance will be quite simple. This is the easy 6 marks you'll get from this chapter. This chapter is a very simple. All you have to know how to calculate the national insurance based on the threshold. So look at the threshold, calculate the national insurance, and say this amount we need to pay to HMRC. That's it. You'll get easy 6 marks from this chapter. Tax planning. So tax planning will have 8 marks, taxable income, calculation of impact tax, and employment income again. Capital gain tax is one of the important area and the most tricky area. I would say for this paper, only the few rules that you have to remember, that is from the capital gain tax. So I advise the student make a note for this chapter because this could be like very tricky if you don't remember this thing. So chargeable gain, and this chapter will cover that, 10 marks from this question. And the next 3 questions we're going to see basically from our disposal of share. So what happened if you disposal means sell. Disposal means sell. So if you dispose some share disposal chapter. So if you dispose some share, what will happen? And as I said, like in the secondary market, anyone can buy or sell the share. So if you buy some share and if you sell it with the gain, how you calculate the gain on that, and what is the rules? For example, if you buy some share today, and after that, after a few months, you buy some share again, and again you buy, and after that you sell like something randomly some share. So which one will be treated as a cost? So you're going to look at this area from that chapter. So it will give you 8 marks in the exam. And we have chapter number 9, capital gain tax again. So we have a 2 capital gain tax question in the exam. We have to look at the relief and exemption, chargeable gain, and the property relief. We're going to look at this chapter, and it will have 10 marks in the exam. Then finally, you can see tax number 10 will have inheritance tax. That will be really straightforward question, but there are a few things you have to remember. For example, is it CLT, that is chargeable lifetime transfer, and we have PET, P-E-T. PET means potential exempt transfer. And we have to look at few things like nil rate resident band and also like some exemptions. We have to remember all the rules. If you remember that, this 10 marks is not very difficult to get. It's quite straightforward and it's easy to get 10 marks in the exam. And this is the only one chapter, inheritance tax, you have to know to get the 10 marks. Now, the personal tax paper could be really, really straightforward if you know all the rules. And it could be very tricky if you don't remember the rules, because either you get full marks or either you lose all the marks for this paper. So my advice will be, when you revise every single chapter, you have to make sure like you make a note from each chapter and all the rules you write it down. For example, on your paper, you write it down chapter number 1. So for example, your income tax calculation. So when you revise anything you don't understand, or if you think it is tricky or difficult, you write the way you can remember. So write it down there so that once you complete the 10 chapters, you will have a full complete note. And before the exam, you revise that and it will give you like sort of like confidence, like this is the area I found tricky during my revision. So I'll be able to solve this problem because now I know what to do. So this is the way we can really get a good score for this exam. And I have seen a student, they get like 95 or 90 on this exam. I have seen a student, they're struggling to pass this exam because they don't remember all the rules. Some student, they look for the reference material. So reference material is like some of the material, some of the information, it will be available on the exam day. So when you do the exam, the reference material will be on your right corner and you can open and you can read. So some students think like, what's the point? Remember all this threshold, but they don't understand it will be wasting the time. So never ever depend on the reference material. So remember all these rules as much as you can. If you really struggle during the exam time, then open something and look at this just to double check, but do not depend on the reference material because it will waste a lot of time for you and you will not be able to finish your exam on time. So it's always better to revise and remember all the basic band, higher band rules, dividend rate, non-savings, exemption, everything has to be on your head so that before the exam you feel like I know everything, so it's time to do the exam. It's not only for exam, even for your workplace or for any other place. If someone asks you some question, obviously you have to know like this thing you already know. You cannot say like it's on the reference material. So it's better to practice enough and remember all the rules and make a note for that. So we're going to cover all these things. So hopefully like now you know what will be covered this personal tax paper. Hopefully like this will be very much helpful to know the first, like the whole area that's going to be in the exam. Now we can do one by one, and hopefully like after you completing that, we have 2 practice assessment from the AAT website. That is very important for us. Once you complete the book, then we move to that practice question. And once you've done this practice question very well, then you'll be kind of ready for your exam. Top of that, you have a question bank. Make sure to practice some question from the question bank because question bank have a lot of exam sort of question. It will be very much helpful for your exam. So let's stop here today for the introduction section. Hopefully this information will help you. And obviously for the next lesson, we're going to start from our chapters and we'll carry on all the chapters and complete off the whole book. Thank you very much.